trying to get in.
Oh. Hello, everybody. I'll just do a quick roll call to check everybody's audio. Can you all hear us?
Yep.
Yes, I can.
Check.
All right. Heard everybody except for Councillor Fraser. Okay, there you are.
And Councillor Brown's still not here.
Councillor Brown is not here. He's neither in the waiting room.
He just let me know that he's having trouble with a password and ID, so.
Yeah,
He's
no.
using another one, the older one. Oh, here he is. All right.
Yes, he is there.
He is there. His camera is
There we
off.
go.
His camera is on. All right. Councillor Brown, can we just hear you speak to make sure you can hear us and we can hear you?
There we go. Everybody, can everybody hear?
I'm good.
Okay, awesome. Okay, it's 7:01. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'll just remind everybody that we have Councillor Alderson, Councillor Auld, Councillor Brown, Councillor Fraser, Narang, and Phillips attending by electronic communications. So we have an agenda in front of us. Does anybody have anything they would like added to the agenda?
Not me.
Okay. Okay. Seeing none, I just need a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Okay, Councillor Auld. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to number 3, we have no delegations. Number 4, adoption of the previous minutes from April the 7th. Everybody's had a chance to read those. Anybody have any concerns?
Nope.
Just a motion to accept those minutes as presented. Councillor Narang. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to number 6.1, the RFD for the work from home policy.
Yep, thank you, Your Worship. So administration presented this policy to council at our last council meeting. Council requested 3 amendments. One was in the purpose, which basically was revised to make it for any emergency if necessary versus strictly pandemic as it was previously. And then that also followed with section 4.1, taking out the pandemic aspect of it and just basically saying any emergency. And I believe there was one more change. That was 5 point something. Correct?
It had to do with,
It was electronic.
Oh,
yes, electronic, yes,
yes,
to incorporate.
5.35.
There was 2 portions.
So administration has made the changes requested by council and is presenting again.
Okay, everybody have a chance to look at that. And how did that look? How do the changes look?
Good.
Okay. I'm good with them. Okay, any other discussion on that? Councillor Phillips?
No discussion. I was going to make a motion if there's no further discussion.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion that council adopt the work from home policy 007/2020 as presented.
thank you. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to number 7, 7.1, waiving tax penalties. And I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So we're presenting this to council to provide assistance to our property owners in town. And what is being suggested by administration is that council consider waiving all tax penalties for the 2020 budget or 2020 tax year. So that would be waiving the penalties all the way up to December 31st. So in essence, what this would do, our tax notices would still go out in May, they would still be officially due at the end of July. But if the property owner can't make the payment, they're not penalized for it. So in essence, they have all the way to the end of December to pay for their taxes without penalty. And administration's idea of it is when we do send out the tax bill or the tax notice, it also goes with a letter which kind of outlines this as a program to assist them. Even though you're getting the bill, you have these options. And with a recommendation that you come onto the monthly payment plan, it doesn't have to be set amounts but you can make monthly payments so you can achieve paying off your tax bill by the end of December.
Okay, discussion on that. Councillor Ald, Councillor Narang.
I think it's a great idea. Hopefully it'll convince more residents to get on the monthly plan. And I think it's a great initiative on our part to waive the fees.
And businesses as well can get on that as well, the monthly payment installment plan. So I think it's great as well. Councillor Narang.
I'm sorry, yeah, I agree. I was just curious, how many, do we know the percentage of people that are not on the installment plan already? I know we've probably asked that in the past, but.
Your worship, I would have to come back to council with the exact figure to ask finance on that. I'm guessing it's around 25%.
That are not on it or that are?
That are.
Oh, wow.
But I could be off on that. So probably I'll need to come back to council on that.
It's okay. I'm just curious, but I think this will definitely encourage people to get on it.
Actually, the 25% figure actually comes from mobile homes. Sorry.
Oh,
Right.
Is the figure. So we'll have to verify that with council. Just to let council know, we do budget $125,000 per year in tax penalties. So that would be, by waiving it, we would not see that revenue. So just to let council know, so really what we're projecting is probably a loss of revenue of around $350,000 at the end of the year through this whole process. That's lost revenue, lost user fees, lost penalties. So at the end of the year, we're predicting a shortfall in our budget of about $350,000. Our plan for council, and we'll be bringing this forward once we have the year end done, but the way it's looking right now is we're going to have about $560,000 surplus coming out of 2019. So what we're going to suggest to council is that we use that surplus as kind of our COVID emergency funding. So we would be able to put that surplus back into the 2020 budget to take care of our shortfall. And that way we're not looking for any future burden on our ratepayers going into 2021.
All I can see is brilliant.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. This is a tough year for everybody involved, not just the town of Rocky, but everywhere. And I think that's a great idea by admin and support it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I just, I really hope that everybody's taking advantage as well of all of the federal and provincial programs. And I don't know if there's a way we can find out, who's still not able to take care of those. Is somebody documenting that? Is that the chamber, or is there a business group out there that is gathering information to say, who are these programs servicing, and are our residents able to take advantage of the programs that are being offered? Councillor Fraser?
I know that a lot of people aren't able to access the federal and the provincial one just because of the limitations they've put on it, but they were talking about expanding it. So if they expand it, we should make sure to get the info out. Because right now, if anyone's making any money at all working from home, they don't qualify. So I know a lot of people have been asking to be laid off because their hours are so reduced, and that doesn't qualify them for programming.
I thought that was changed on the announcement on Friday, or I can't keep track. Monday? Maybe Monday, the new $73 billion that said it was going to get more of those people in the loophole that were falling through the loopholes.
You have to be down to 10 hours a week.
Sorry, Councillor Ring?
Sorry to interrupt. You have to be down to 10 hours a week in order to qualify.
Okay. Well, I mean, I totally agree by not, by offering no penalties. It's a great, hopefully it's a great help to people, to residents. So we have some other discussions in here as well. That was the first.
Yeah, so Your Worship, the other one was the Sandy dump at the museum. Typically, we open that up just prior to the May long weekend. The way that operates is the users can either go into the Visitor Information Center to buy tokens to put into to use the facility or use credit card. With the VIC being closed, that takes away one option. So then the residents would have to, or the users would have to use credit card. What administration is recommending is that we actually just open it up and no charge till June 30th or till such time the VIC is actually open again.
So I have a question. How much staff time is will be needed to monitor the Sandy dump now?
Your Worship, I'll turn that over to Mr. Shanks.
Your Worship, that's a tough one. We would probably attend 3 times throughout the day. That is more to look at garbage and to see if there are any spillages around the Sandy itself. I would think 3 hours.
A day?
And that's if everything goes well. If one of the flaps get broken off or the token machine doesn't work, or like there's a lot of different things that play into effect here.
And then will that require overtime as well on the weekend?
Yes.
So could we consider shorter hours even on the weekend rather than having it open? Like what are the hours right now that it's open?
Right now it's open 24/7.
Right. Sorry, in the summer when it
Yeah.
is open 24/7. So should we consider only keeping, like, I guess how much can you turn it off and on? Is it easy to turn it off?
Your
and on?
Worship, you can. It's just a switch in the building. But then you're going to run into issues with the people that are trying to dump after hours. And we've already seen that where they just dump on the ground. Not into
ideal.
the holes. Yeah. We did look at those options as well.
Okay, Councillor Fraser?
Do we have any cameras available to put in that area to, so they could see the license plate of the item? It might actually be a good opportunity for us to do a car count and keep an eye on it. It might give us some good data of how it's used and how often it's used, and is it used by non-Alberta plates more often than not. It just might be an interesting data set to have. And the camera might protect us from people deciding that they wanted to dump their whole tank.
Okay.
Your Worship, there actually is cameras on the site. I think there's 2, Mr. Shanks.
Yes.
So, but that's visible inside the museum or the VIC, right? Or do you guys have access?
we have access. It's right now, it's currently in the Legion washrooms. In the storage area is where the cameras are. You have to go and physically look at it. We do have new cameras coming in that we will be able to look at from offices. The cameras right now don't stop people from dumping on the ground. They don't care. We haven't fined them.
Mhm.
You should.
They do. So
Why would they dump on the ground though? If they, just because it was not easy to
they don't
dump?
have tokens or they don't have a card.
They don't want to pay.
Yeah.
Pay for it.
Not paying.
We should absolutely be fining them for doing that. That's disgusting.
Okay, I have Councillor Narang and then Councillor Ald.
I was just curious if the 3-hour estimation for staff time is based on like last year's numbers, or is it COVID? Like, are we considering that it might not be as busy given the pandemic?
Your worship, I would actually think it's going to be a lot busier this year because of COVID, with most people wanting to get out into the West Country and get away from home. We, as far as operations, haven't dealt with the RV dump in quite a few years now. Those numbers are just kind of based in my head from what we've done in the past. And if we are open on the weekend, now we're charging your 3-hour overtime for each call out to come in.
Mhm.
And that doesn't include any actual call outs if we have a sewer plug or
Right.
what.
Did that answer your question, Councillor
Yeah,
Narang?
I just had a quick follow-up because today they announced the closures, banning of OHVs and fires and all of that in 60% of Alberta. Is that, I didn't look at a map to see where that is applicable, but is that in the West Country or, and then also with the closures to vehicle access of the provincial recreation, those sorts of things.
It is.
Yeah, your worship, that's the green zones. That's all pretty much all provincial land, and that's most of the West Country.
So that means no fires, no
No.
OHVs. So, Councillor Ald?
I was just gonna ask Mr. Shanks is there a 24 hours after number posted at the dump?
Your worship, I believe there is. It's not our number though. I believe it's the VIC.
Okay, so we're gonna have to get that changed to the town then.
Yeah, and that's one thing to remember. I mean, the money that is generated through the Sandy dump actually goes to the chamber, and that's part of our payment to them to run the VIC.
Right.
But I mean, with the VIC closed, I mean, they can't expect the same dollar value either, so
Right. Do we have to make them aware of that?
we'll have to.
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Yeah, because I mean, I can see this being another financial cost that we hadn't anticipated in our budget, so. Councillor Alderson?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, I was okay with it, you know, with the town, with this recommendation of closing it down while the VIC is closed. You know, that way, hopefully people just don't dump if they don't have tokens or if they're not paying by credit card and there's nobody there. But that is not something I really considered was, you know, if we're shutting that down and there's not revenue coming through, that's revenue that would normally go towards running that, or revenue that would go towards the chamber, correct? Like they can use it for other things, or is it just for running the VIC, or sorry, for running the Sandy dump?
Your worship, I mean, technically it's for operating the VIC for the town. Whether they use that money specific for that, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But we're looking at waiving the fees also for the Sandy dump, right? For this time.
Well, that's the issue potentially, depending on what that affected, because it's not like we're just waiving them. We're actually not giving revenue to the chamber then, because that's their revenue that they're using, but supposedly for running that, but maybe for other things. I don't know. But anyhow, it was just a thought because I'd never considered that before.
Yeah, your worship, I think it's typically around $8,000 a year.
So we don't really know what kind of a financial impact this is going to be to the town by doing this, right?
Well, your worship, from the revenue point, it's really not an impact to us.
Right.
Because the money just goes over to the chamber.
But I'm just talking
Right.
staff time and, you know, in case there is a blockage that you have to take care of and it becomes more than just a couple of hours a day. So, Councillor Fraser?
Well, but that would have been the case whether or not we were accepting money for the sandy dump. If it backed up, we would still have, that still wouldn't have been out of the VIC money that's going to the chamber. That would have been out of Public Works, correct? Like, we're not removing money for maintenance. We're just removing the money that goes to the chamber. Correct?
Yeah, your worship, you are correct, Councillor Fraser. In the past, we've always pushed to have operations paid for our services. It never went that way.
Right.
But that's just for a sewer blockage. There still is the fact of the garbage, people dumping, they break the lid off, the water, because we do also supply water at that dump in 2 locations.
So last year, like typically you would take care of the garbage and everything anyways then, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Like on a regular?
We put a dumpster there 3 years ago. It's running probably $800 for the season. That would come out of our operating budget,
Okay,
which saved a lot of man hours.
sure. Okay, Councillor Phillips?
Councillor Fraser had asked the question that I was going to ask, or answered it, basically that those expenses would be there irregardless. And, you know, basically by waiving the fees, the money going to the Visitor Information Center is just lessened.
Yeah, you know, it's extra monitoring. And I think that needs to be pointed out, right? Because the VIC is not open. Whereas if there's a problem before, they would go into the VIC and, you know, get help that way. As well on the weekend. The VIC is open on the weekend. So that's just extra time over and above this year. So, I mean, I think it's an unusual circumstance, and I think we just count that into the expenses of dealing with the crisis that we're dealing with right now. Or unless somebody has any other suggestions, Councillor Auld?
No, I don't think there is any other suggestion for me. If we don't have that sandy dump open, the amount of traffic that goes through there that's going to be dumping on the side of the road in the county, it's going to be crazy. We need to make sure that that sandy dump is open.
Okay, any other discussion? And then I guess we monitor it if, you know, if the VIC opens, then it goes back to regular. So do we put a sign saying that so that we, you know, people don't just think it's suddenly there's no charge? Like, you know, we say.
That's where my comment was, that we need to have a sign put up there that it's the after hours number, response number, and this is due to the COVID. And once this is over.
Once it's over, we'll go back to the regular charging of fees. Okay. All right. I can just get all these motions at the end, right?
Yep.
You know, to do that. Okay.
So your worship, the other consideration for council is Centennial Campground, which is usually opened in May, along with the washroom building. As it's a municipal facility, and we're actually not, you know, able to ensure social distancing. And probably the biggest concern is the washroom facility, which is open to the public. Again, you wouldn't be able to do social distancing in the washroom, plus for the concern of we would have to have staff go in and clean it. So we're actually just recommending that we close the campground until June 30th and be reevaluated then.
I think that makes sense because it means then staff time, perhaps from Centennial, can go to the sandy dump And maybe it'll equal out, right? Maybe it'll just be kind of an even. Because how much time do you think you spend there in a day?
Your worship, the Centennial was taken over from, or the parks had taken it over. Wes is
Oh,
correct.
right, okay.
So,
But I mean, there would be less time because we wouldn't be in there
Sure.
with washroom. Our peace officers patrol it on a regular basis when it's open too. So that wouldn't occur, so.
Yeah,
and closing that, the campground with the washrooms follows suit with what we've got done with everything else.
Yeah.
Closing the Legion washrooms.
right, okay. Councillor Narang?
Would the washrooms at Centennial Park be part of the required closures of town rec facilities?
Your,
Point.
yeah, your worship, I mean, I think it's kind of in that gray area. I mean, the province has closed down their campgrounds.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they've actually put anything on a private campground yet. I don't believe they have.
No, because I think they said today private campgrounds could still have fires.
Yeah, so.
So,
I just wonder if it was part of town rec facilities though. Because those are all closed.
and sorry, our bathroom, the bathroom at the Legion bathroom, it's closed as well.
I'm wondering if it's part of that provincial direction to close them. If we need to make a motion, or we should have had them closed already.
The
Yeah,
campground?
the campground.
Yeah. We haven't addressed it because it's not open yet.
Right.
So,
Okay, Councillor Fraser?
Well, the province has closed its campgrounds and its washrooms and its rest stops, and I think that it makes sense that we would close it because it's a town facility which needs to be closed. It's a non-essential business which should be closed, and the province just closed all of its washrooms and campgrounds. I also don't want us to be the only campground open
With washrooms.
with washrooms available in the area. I feel like we could probably become a that could be a problem.
Okay. So any more discussion on that? Is everybody good with the recommendation then? It makes sense to me, so. Okay. So we can move on.
Your worship, so the next item is our spring cleanup. What we're asking council to do is to postpone it at least until and reevaluate in the fall. And basically the reasons is our staff would be handling materials coming from households and so forth. So it's more of a safety measure for our staff than anything.
Okay, it makes total sense for me to postpone as well.
Yeah, it'd be classified as a non-essential service.
Everybody else, thoughts on that?
It's a great program, and I would not like to see it disappear for the year, just postpone. So the recommendation makes perfect sense.
Councillor Alderson,
Same, yeah, just what Councillor Phillips said.
Councillor Brown,
And likewise.
okay. All right. I had one other thing since we were talking about this, at some point, hopefully soon, everybody's talking about recovery mode. Do we need to get together perhaps and have a separate meeting and maybe even ask for public feedback and look at recovery mode? What does that look like? Are there, do we need to have a task force, to come up with some solution or some ideas, some suggestions to kind of get things moving again once everything is allowed to be opened? We've got Market on Main still that we're unsure of. There are many different things. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Councillor Auld?
I think it falls into line with my comment the other day that we should have a task force right now for businesses to draw on expertise. Even when this is done, I think we should have that same group of people that can give some direction moving forward.
Okay, Councillor Phillips.
I agree with Councillor Old. Right now, there's so many unanswered questions, and maybe there's ideas that not just we can have, but other residents can have that would help bring us out of this COVID-19 situation better and faster and stronger than other municipalities. And having a task force is a great idea to help bring us out of this, for sure.
And that was kind of my thought. You know, this is an unusual circumstance, and it's going to have to be all hands on deck once we get out of this. And I think our public, the residents, businesses may have very valuable, or will have very valuable suggestions. You know, we've already made a few announcements here today, or, you know, suggestions here today to help people, you know, with the differing or not differing, what's the word? Waiving tax penalties and so on. But I think having a task force will allow us to just get together and brainstorm and, you know, maybe take a couple of suggestions and build on that and look at other communities and just really start thinking about what we're gonna look like after. So, Councillor Fraser?
I like the idea of the task force. I think it's a really good idea, and I think that planning now for what's coming later is important. I just want to make sure that people don't think that that we're giving the all clear and that they don't need to follow the information in I just don't want to send the signal that we can all go back to normal.
No, that's not at all. No, that's not at all what I'm suggesting. It's what can we do once the province gives the go ahead, and they, you know, if they do their own staggered opening on everything again, you know, what can we do to help businesses and residents and, you know, get back? It's, you know, maybe promoting our playgrounds for kids, or, you know, talking about other things for, you know, for businesses, getting workshops, diversifying the economy, any kind of help that we can give as a council, or any kind of session that we can have that people could give us feedback on. Councillor Auld?
I think going forward that it needs to be a member of the chamber involved in that as well. That's their mandate, is to help businesses and get everybody back on board. So I think they need to be involved in that discussion.
Yeah, I agree, but I would like to see it also include residents.
Definitely.
So, yeah, so I think it's a task force for the town.
I agree.
So what could that look like then? Do we?
So, Your Worship, we would have to bring back a terms of reference for council to adopt for a task force, for a committee, as per the MGA. We could bring that back on the 21st, because I think you want this up and running as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So just for clarification, is the task force council and you consult with the chamber and residents, or is the members of the task force include the chamber and a resident, or for us to do?
That's the way I would see it.
So invite the executive director of the chamber. And maybe we'd have our economic development officer as well. And would we have a member of the public, or should we just have an open area, someplace they could direct all their comments, rather than, you know, just only selecting one resident where everybody, there many people would have good ideas. Councillor Narang?
Would we maybe invite the executive of the chamber, like their president and whatever their executive titles are, to be part of the task force rather than just the ED? Because then you're covering off the local businesses and members of the public.
Take what's council's wishes. I'm good with just, you know, keeping it fairly I mean, how big do we want the task force, I guess?
I think 3 or 4 people.
3 or 4, or all of council?
Uh,
Councillor Narang?
Never, but I
Or
don't
sorry, Councillor Fraser?
When we did the cannabis, was that a working group, Dean? Was that a task force? Because we had a group that met on specific issues, and there were, I guess, stakeholders. There was a public health official there. There was the high school principals there. They had kind of stakeholders that came together for that group and went over the new legislation and went over info from the public and questions from the public, and then kind of put their recommendations forward. Like it was almost like an experts group, but then there was public involved as well. Would that count under task force if we said we wanted someone from the chamber, we wanted someone just from the different areas, so we make sure that everybody gets covered?
Yeah, your worship, so that was a task force and council selected key stakeholders from different aspects, like the schools, the businesses and so forth. So this is very similar to that. If council wants it that way.
I could see the value of having all of council be involved for the first couple at least. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, if we did have all council involved in the first couple sessions, excuse me, we could also break off into different sects, and some talk with businesses, some talk with schools, some talk with the public.
Yeah, that's a good.
And then come back and meet as a whole and come up with an action plan that way.
Sure. That sounds good. Any other feedback?
Sounds good to me.
And me.
Okay. So do we have some? Does that sound good enough, Dean? And then you'll bring it back. We'll bring it back to.
To be clear, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just need a motion to bring terms of reference back.
For task force. Okay, I'll add that. Councillor Phillips.
I was going to make that motion, but I guess we'll wait for the other motions.
Okay, sure. Sounds good. Thanks. Any other discussion on those? Okay, so we have some alternatives in front of us. Starting with the waiving of the tax penalties outlined in bylaw 2019. Councillor Alderson.
I'll make that motion that council approve waiving the tax penalties outlined in bylaw 2019/08F for the months of August, October for the 2020 fiscal year.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, all in favor of that motion? Okay, and that motion is carried, unanimous. We need to discuss any of those other things. The other, like the. There were some letters, emails in here. We didn't necessarily
They were
discuss.
for information.
Okay, okay. Okay, we have another recommended alternative in front of us. The council waive fees for the town sandy dump. Councillor Narang. Do you need to?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Good with that, Renee? Yep. All in favor of that motion? Okay, thank you. That's carried, unanimous. That council closed Centennial Campground is. Councillor Brown.
Make the motion that council close Centennial Campground and washroom facility until June 30th, 2020 due to COVID-19.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of that motion? Okay, and that's carried, unanimous. Okay, Okay, we have two more in front, or two more. Councillor Fraser,
I'll make the motion that council cancel or postpone the annual spring cleanup in May due to COVID-19.
perfect, yeah, you got postponed instead of canceled. Renee? you good
Yes,
with
I
that?
do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried unanimous, thank you. And a motion, well, I'll make the motion to have admin bring back a terms of reference for a, do we call it a COVID-19 recovery task force?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Okay. Good, Renee?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Councillor Narang?
I just have a question.
Yep.
Would it, since we're taking the time to develop a terms of reference, would it be a better idea to call it an emergency recovery task force or something along those lines so that we could use it in, if there is another thing down the road where it's similar circumstances in place?
Yeah, your worship, but then that would become a committee versus a task force. Because a task force generally has one task until it's done.
Okay,
But we could draft it either way.
well,
Is
let's
it-
not put it out in the universe. We'll keep it with the task force.
Okay.
Hope it's the only time we need it.
Yeah, and then once we're done, it's done.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any more questions on that or clarification? Okay, all in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried unanimous, thank you. All right. So I just need a motion to accept correspondence for action for 9.1 to 9.5 as correspondence for information. Councillor Alderson?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? Okay, that. Councillor Narang, sorry, were you in? Okay.
That time,
I'm getting dizzy looking all over, thanks. Okay. That motion is carried unanimous, thank you. And we have the action list, 10.1. Any questions on the action list, comments? Okay, I just need a motion to accept the action list. Councillor Phillips,
I'll make that motion.
okay, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried.
Your worship, just 8.1.
Oh. Darn. Oh, I was wondering why it was going so quick. Sorry, I missed 8.1. Municipal Affairs Detailed Assessment Audit Report. Sorry, I skipped right over that. Thanks, and I'll turn that over to you, Ms. Kraus.
Sure. Thank you, your worship. So as council is aware, Municipal Affairs conducted an audit on our assessment, and they have just completed it and submitted it to us. We have been in discussion with Municipal Affairs along with our assessor. So the audit was fairly good. So if you look on page 44, they just have some requirements for us to do. And they're actually already taken care of. For the town, really what they're talking about, correct exemption and reasons. Council just addressed that at our last council meeting for tax exempt properties, so that's all straightened out. And Municipal Affairs is working with our assessor to ensure that the requirements on him are met, and they're actually have come back and said that it's being complete. So really what we need from council, unless council has any questions on it, is just to accept the audit.
How long did this take, this audit?
Your worship, I think it was probably about 8-9 months,
And so we shouldn't have to do another one now for
years.
years, okay?
Yeah. They just randomly select municipalities per year.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Anybody have questions, comments? No? Councillor Phillips?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the assessment audit report as presented.
Any other questions? All in favor of that motion? That motion is carried unanimous. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. Don't know how I missed that. I got a motion though for the action list, right? Okay. All right, we'll move on to number 11, administrative inquiries. Does anybody have any administrative inquiries? Councillor Narang?
Yeah. Just curious, a couple of things. The one about our local RCMP, I was on the phone with the public health inspector yesterday, and she had mentioned that RCMP are not accepting COVID-19 regulation violation complaints during the after hours, where she isn't understanding why. It was the public health understanding that municipal police force would be accepting those. So, but ours are not, even at the non-emergency line. They're just directing people to go report it online.
Your worship, I will have a discussion with Sergeant Dinsdale, because the order that we received from the province was if the public health inspector gets a complaint, it goes to our peace officer. If our peace officer is not available, then it goes to the RCMP.
Right.
So
like in real time, when there is a complaint, like of something taking place, and you call, like bylaw is not available, so it's after hours, and then you call the non-emergency line, they're just directing you to the internet.
yeah, because for all COVID complaints, we have to receive it through the public health inspector.
Okay. So that doesn't work for real-time complaints. So by the time it comes through, the infraction's already taken place because it's like a 2-day turnover, which is nothing that you can do about it. It's just a fact of the matter.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And my other question is about the, can I keep going?
Yes, go ahead.
Just curious about the TC Energy camp. Just there's been some concerns about what's going on there, and if there's precautions in place, and just if you could just fill us in a little bit about that, just because I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, the camp is for TC Energy, and it's to support their workers out that are doing the work out in the West Country.
Okay. And so are they're obviously adhering to regulations, and there's.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Those are the only 2 questions I had.
Anybody else? Okay, I had a question, and I'm not sure if any of you, we've got our new website up now, and I'm not sure, is there a desire to have like an info session, a future website info session? Councillor Narang?
Yeah, Councillor Ald has been kicked out of the meeting. He just texted the group. He's no longer able.
No, he's still very much here.
I didn't think he blinked.
he
That's all.
If you look at him, he's not moving.
I thought he was just really serious. He looked really serious.
Okay.
Okay, he's showing us here, both live and in person. So.
That he's right out. He said all he can see is a blank screen.
Okay, has he tried a hard refresh? He also has the dial-in information if he would like to dial in from his cell phone. That was in the email sent this afternoon. I will not share it live on our feed.
He's texting account that, yeah.
Are you able to kick him out? Like
I can.
Yeah, and then you can just call back in, right?
Yeah, come back in. He's probably blocking himself.
Okay, did somebody text him to say?
Yeah.
guys have to wait.
It's intense.
You're telling me.
A lot of suspense for the YouTube audience out there.
Anybody know?
We should change our backgrounds.
Yeah.
I almost showed up with the beach behind me.
It's
So he should just be able to go back and log in the way he logged in the first time though, right?
He should. There's no reason on my end why he wouldn't, but we can patch him in this way.
Hello?
Hello, Councillor Ald, it's Laura. We're not sure what happened on the platform, but we have you on audio here.
Looks like I might be able to be joining here again.
Okay, let me just admit you.
Hooray.
Can you hear us, Councillor Ald?
Well, hi.
Okay.
Oh, guys.
Yeah.
Much less serious now.
Okay, so my discussion was, we have a new website. Is there any desire to have a website information session, like during one of our council meetings? Do you want to have like where you can find everything? Everybody's good? Yeah? So have it like part of one of a council meeting? Could we do it in 20 minutes or something like that? Just kind of, and then people can ask questions?
I think so.
Okay. So I'll make that. Or I guess I don't have to, you're just gonna, you'll bring it back then?
So like as part of the regular council meeting?
What do you think? Is that doable or should we have it separate?
Yeah, I'm looking at her.
I have to figure out how I'm going to do it with all of us meeting virtually. So maybe not for the 21st, because I just need to figure out how.
Yeah,
it's
no, that's
done.
fine. That's fine. We can do it maybe in May, and maybe by that time, maybe we'll all be able to be back together in some shape. Councillor Alderson?
Yeah, I was just thinking like, it's actually advantageous to do it over Zoom because you can literally share your screen. And so you can just show that one screen and not all of us during that time. And you can actually walk people through it step by step so we can all see it over Zoom, anybody who's logging in or YouTube or however they're watching this.
It'd be like a tutorial. I think the best place to do that.
I'll get a practice run up before we get it on the agenda if I can do.
Okay. No, that sounds good. May works for me if that's okay with you guys.
Yep.
It's not a big, but I just thought there's so much going on there, and rather than all of us contacting somebody to get a question answered. Okay, good. Any other administrative inquiries? You don't need a motion for that.
No.
Okay. Any notices of motion?
No.
Okay. So seeing none, it's 7:55. I will call for a 5-minute break. And then we'll come back and go into closed session. But we're doing that through teleconference.
Yes.
So I guess everybody will call in for that.
Oh.
We'll meet you over on the Pragmatic platform.
Can I ask why are we going to that?
Because there has been issues with confidentiality, this particular Zoom, so.
Okay.
And it's not video, right?
No, there's
No.
no video on Pragmatic, just the audio.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys all have that number to call into then?
Pretty much.
Okay, we're all good? Okay, thanks.